Good morning everyone, and welcome to a new vlog. I'm just taking the opportunity to sit outside and have a mid-morning cup of tea. It's a really gorgeous morning today, and earlier it was really cold, so there was quite a lot of frost on the ground and I couldn't really linger outside, but the frost is gone now and it's just a beautiful spring morning. So I've got my tea and I'm just enjoying a bit of a breather. I've been doing a lot of writing this morning, working on an article for Seasons of Story, as well as my book. So I've been doing a lot of writing, and now I just fancy a breath of fresh air and a cup of tea before I get back to it. But I also thought I would show you the pots. You might remember the pots that I planted in the autumn. I thought I'd show you how they're coming along. Now we're well into March, and also the daffodils are out and looking lovely near us, so I thought I'd show you the daffodils too. But I'm just going to finish my tea in a minute and just soak up this lovely sunshine. Okay, so here you can see the pots that I planted. These ones over here I planted in December. They have tulips coming up. It was just tulips I put in those ones, and I'm really excited that they're already making an appearance. The upside down pot had the Christmas tree in it. That's why it didn't get anything in that one for this year. But these two I potted up with tulips in December. I worried it was a bit late, but they seem to be fine, so that's good. And then it's these four pots over here that you saw me plant in the autumn. And I'm really excited because you can see the first crocus is starting to bloom here, and there are quite a few others coming up. We have had something munching the crocuses here. You can see they've just munched them right down to the roots. We suspect it's a hare that's sort of taken up residence, which is lovely, so we don't really mind. These daffodils all starting to come up as well, that you can see. And then in this pot, it's tulips. So it was this one I planted some tulips in. And then these little bits are a different type of crocus. These were the ones that I planted in the autumn that you could harvest for saffron. So they're a different type of crocus than those ones. And they actually bloomed in November. And I've just cut back the sort of long leafy fronds because they grew really, really long. And I wanted enough sunshine for the other plants that are starting to come through. So I cut all of these down that had been the crocuses that bloomed in the autumn. I don't think I'd get that type again because they bloomed in November and then we got snow straight away, and that really kind of finished off the flowers. All of the greenery remained, which was quite pretty to see over the winter. But to be honest, I think I'd stick with this type another year, just a kind of regular crocus, not the type that you use to harvest saffron, because they come up in the spring and it's nice to see them now. And unfortunately the winter weather is so unpredictable that it's likely it would snow again in November, and that was hard on those crocuses. So I'm not sure I'd plant that type again. I'd plant the type that comes up in the spring. But here you can see lots of daffodils coming up that I planted in these pots coming up here as well. And yes, I think this one's doing really well. It gets a lot of sun, I think, this one. But also it has the crocuses that are ready and blooming now. So I'm really thrilled with them. And behind me you can see lots of lovely daffodils blooming away. It's so wonderful to see them. Even on a grey spring day, they add a touch of sunshine. Of course today it's really sunny, which is really marvellous. But yes, even when the weather's a bit dreary and dull, the daffodils just brighten every day. So they're one of my favourite flowers of spring, and it's so lovely to see them out. I always think of Wordsworth's famous daffodil poem whenever I'm out here and watching them dance in the breeze. I just saw the hare scampering through that field down there, which was very exciting to see. I'm sorry I didn't catch it on camera, but it moved so fast it would just have been a blur anyway. But so lovely to see it. Oh look, there it comes. Can you see? Oh, it's just gone through the other way. Oh no, there it's coming. Oh, there it is. It was so exciting to just see the hare like that. I hope I was able to get it a bit on the camera. I don't know if I managed, but if I did, then you'll have seen it. But oh, perfect timing, just so exciting. Of course it went and dawdled by our pots. I'm sure it's got a bit of a taste for the crocuses, but never mind, we absolutely love the hare, so it's so wonderful to see it. So I'm squinting a bit, the sun's so bright, but yes, what a lovely little mid-morning break. Hello, so I'm up in my bedroom now. I enjoyed my mid-morning break and I've been working some more on my writing, but I'm taking another break from writing now, and I've actually changed because it's so lovely and warm and spring-like and beautiful outside that I thought I'd wear something a bit more spring-like today. And I'm really thrilled because I've had some new clothes given to me by Simple Retro. I'm delighted to say that Simple Retro are very kindly sponsoring today's video. I've showcased quite a few of their clothes before. I love the fact that Simple Retro are a female founded company and they make vintage inspired affordable fashion. They also are committed to sustainability as much as possible with their brand, and one of the ways that they make clothing more sustainable is they create small batches of clothes that drop regularly throughout each season. So they let me pick out some new items that are really lovely for spring. The first one I chose is this very pretty cotton blouse. And also, before I go any further, I should say too that I have a discount code with Simple Retro, which is Miranda 10. That's Miranda capital M 10 Miranda 10, and that gets you 10% off any of the Simple Retro clothes. But yes, so this is the first item that I chose, and it's a really simple but lovely cotton blouse. I've paired it with an old vintage Laura Ashley skirt. I'll show you the full length in a minute. So this is one that I picked up secondhand, this skirt, but it goes so nicely with this blouse. And one of the things I love about Simple Retro clothes is that they have really pretty feminine details to their clothing. So on this blouse you can see that there's some lovely floral embroidery all on the blouse. It's got a nice frill around the little puffed sleeves, which I love. I also like the little pleating at the top of the blouse. The little frill around the collar is also so nice. So it's those little feminine touches that I really appreciate about their clothing. I'll show you the full length effect. Okay, I'm just going to step back so you can see the full outfit with my skirt, and I've just got little ballet flats on. But I think this is just such a versatile blouse because you can wear it with trousers or jeans, you can wear it with a skirt. And what I really like about it too is that it has a little lining, as you can see, sewn in on the inside of the blouse, and that just means I'm not worried about it being too see-through. Even though it's a lovely light cotton and a pale creamy colour, I'm not worried about it being see-through. So yes, this is my new outfit of the day. And here's the next item I picked out from Simple Retro. A very summery, very pretty white cotton dress. Again, it's got some lovely detailing. So around the very pretty collar, there it's edged with embroidery, which I think is so pretty. There's some lace and pleating around the bodice as well, and a little ruffle around the sleeves, which I really like. I'll step back so you can see it full length. It's quite a long dress, which is oh so nice. Very floaty for summer. I've just got my little pumps on again with it. But yes, it is lined, this dress. I've also just got a slip-on for that extra protection, which I always like to wear with white cotton dresses. But I really am getting excited about the idea of summer with this dress. This is one I'll be definitely wearing through the summer months. And here's the final piece that I picked out, a really pretty blue tea dress. I love the 1940s feel to this dress. It's got a really wonderful vintage vibe. I do like a good tea dress. And the pattern on this one is so pretty. I love this colour blue, and then you can see it's a really sweet floral pattern. I also really like that there's a little popper here so that you're not in danger of anything falling apart. This is a wrap style dress, so you can see it's got little buttons at the side and then a tie for around the waist. But it's just such a very pretty, floaty, light feeling dress. Again, this is one that is going to see me from spring into summer, and I just adore the colour. I love blue, so I really couldn't resist this one. But anyway, do remember my discount code is Miranda, capital M Miranda 10, Miranda 10, and that will get you 10% off anything on the Simple Retro website. I'll put links to all of the clothing that I picked out in the video description box just down below. And I'll also put the information for my discount code there too. So do check out the video description box. But anyway, I'm going to get changed back into my other outfit. Well, from being such a lovely day, it suddenly clouded over and is raining pretty heavily. So definitely experiencing plenty of spring showers so far here in Yorkshire. But never mind, I'm getting cosy in the kitchen right now because we've actually got a friend coming over for supper later, and I'm going to make one of my favourite nibbles for sort of pre-dinner drinks, and that's Nigella's Parmesan shortbreads, which is from her Nigelissima cookbook, my very favourite of her cookbooks. The recipe is also online, so I'll link to it in the video description box if you'd like to try it out, because it's such an easy but really yummy recipe, just perfect to have with a pre-dinner drink. And I love it because it only takes 4 ingredients, which is plain flour, parmesan, grated parmesan, and I have those 2 things in the food processor already, butter, and the yolk of an egg. So all you do is put everything in the food processor, blitz it together until it starts to form a dough, and then I pat it into shape. So I'm just going to get these things into the food processor. Okay, so I've blitzed away with the food processor and it's starting to clump together. So I'm just going to tip out the dough now, and then you just knead it. Nigella says for about 30 seconds, so really not for very long. And then you just divide it into 2 balls and then just sort of roll those out into more of a log shape. So let's get this dough together. Okay, so I've got my dough into a ball and I'm just going to roughly break it in half, and then you need to kind of get it into a bit of a log shape, and you sort of square the ends off too. She says you want it to be about the size of a pound coin when you cut them later. These are actually going to go in the fridge to rest for a while. And then you take them out, cut them into sort of pound coin sized pieces and pop them in the oven. They're just so easy, but so delicious. I love to make these. So looking forward to getting to eat them later. It's been quite some time since I actually made these Parmesan shortbreads, so I'm really looking forward to them. Alright, I've got one log. It's a bit bigger than the other, but I'm not worrying too much. So I'm going to cover these and pop them in the fridge for, I think it's about 45 minutes, quite some time. And then I'm just going to take them out and bake them when I want them. So while the Parmesan shortbread dough is chilling in the fridge, I wanted to just take the time to have a bit of a bookish catch up with you, because I've had some books arrive that I'd pre-ordered months ago and have been really looking forward to getting. So I thought I'd share those with you, and then I thought I'd also just catch you up a bit on some of my recent reads. So one of the first books that has arrived that I pre-ordered a long time ago and was very eager to get is Spring, The Story of a Season by Michael Morpurgo. And I've been really looking forward to this. Apparently, this is going to be a seasonal quartet of books. I think the others in the series that do the other seasons are going to be by different writers. But this is the first one out, and I love Michael Morpurgo's writing. And it says that he has lived on a farm deep in rural Devon for more than 40 years. In spring, he observes the season unfolding on the farm around him. As fragile new shoots emerge, buds turn to blossom and the grey skies give way to bloom. As the natural world shakes off a long winter, Michael watches lambs being born, delights in a fanfare of bluebells in the woods, and sings to the birds, dressed in his wellies and dressing gown. He shares small moments of joy found in the back garden, as well as more dramatic encounters with sparrowhawks, hares, and otters. With new poems and reminiscences about childhood and springs gone by, this is an enchanting celebration of the season from one of the world's best-loved authors. It's a very slim read, as you can see, so I'm looking forward to picking this up one evening and just relishing in his writing and relishing in the story of spring that he tells while spring is unfurling outside of my window. I'm just really excited to add this book to my stack of seasonal reading for spring. I'm really thrilled. So yes, I can't wait to dive into this one. And then another book that I'm so excited to read, and I have already started, is Lucy Mangan's new book, Bookish. A lot of you will know that I absolutely adored Lucy Mangan's biblio-memoir Bookworm. I read that when it first came out years and years ago. I've been recommending it ever since. Last September, I chose it for my Comfort Book Club read, and it was so fun returning to the book then. And it was perfect to read Bookworm again just a few months ago, because that means that I could just go straight into Bookish, which is really almost like a sequel to Bookworm. It's another biblio-memoir, and it essentially starts off just where Bookworm left off. So Lucy Mangan is going into adolescence in this book, and then it progresses through her adult life to where she is now, how reading has continued to shape her life. And I just love her writing so much. She's so funny. I love what she says about books. I love that she likes to own a lot of books, just as I do. So she really feels like a kindred bookish spirit, and she loves so many of the same books that I do as well. So I'm so excited that this is now out. So this is one that I've already started and I'm really enjoying already. If you're new to her work, I would recommend starting with Bookworm, because that just sets you up really well for enjoying bookish. So I would recommend beginning with Bookworm. I don't think you'd regret it. And then another book that I'd pre-ordered is Janet Todd's Living with Jane Austen. This sounds like a really interesting blend of memoir and examination of Jane Austen's novels. Janet Todd is such an esteemed scholar on Jane Austen and English literature generally that I'm sure I'm going to really enjoy this and find it a very interesting read. So I was excited to get this. And then another book that I'd pre-ordered is this new biography of Vanessa Bell, Virginia Woolf's sister. It's called Vanessa Bell, The Life and Art of a Bloomsbury Radical by Wendy Hitchmew. And I'm so excited to read this. I'm such a fan of Vanessa Bell's artwork, and it really looks like a beautiful book to read because there's so much artwork included, which I love. So it's a beautiful book in its own right, but I'm sure it'll be full of fascinating information as well. I just love this portrait done by Vanessa Bell. I think that's gorgeous. So I'm really already appreciating the beautiful illustrations in this book, the fact that they've reproduced quite large versions of the paintings. I really like that. So it just looks like a stunning book, and I'm excited to get to this one, but it certainly will be a lovely addition to my collection of books on the Bloomsbury group, so really thrilled about that. And then my mum surprised me with this book, which was so lovely, and that's Jane Austen in 41 Objects by Catherine Sutherland. This looks like a really fun little book for anyone who loves Jane Austen. It maybe isn't one to get if you don't know much about Jane Austen or her life already, but for those of you who maybe have already read a biography of Jane Austen and know quite a bit about her, this is a really fun little book to pick up and enjoy dipping into, because it just gives interesting snippets about her life through 41 different objects. So each entry isn't that long, but it just does tell you some sort of interesting information. And I think it's just quite a quirky way of looking at Jane Austen's life and her works as well. So I think this is one that I'm going to really enjoy flicking through. And I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot of tidbits about Jane Austen's life that I'd never really known before. So it's just a fun idea. And again, it's got some lovely illustrations and photographs in here, which I think is fabulous. So that was a really lovely surprise gift from my mum. I was so thrilled with that. And yes, I thought I'd just tell you a bit about some of my recent reads. So I've been reading quite a bit of D.E. Stevenson lately. I finished The Four Graces. I think I told you about this on one of my previous videos. I'd started this and have been enjoying it, and I finished it and I did really enjoy it. It's sort of loosely tied to the Miss Bunkle books, particularly the third book in the Miss Bunkle trilogy, which is The Two Mrs. Abbotts. Some of the characters that you meet in The Two Mrs. Abbotts have little sort of cameo roles in The Four Graces, which is quite fun to see. I like when you get overlapping characters like that. But this is essentially a book about four sisters, and two of those sisters in particular. But the sisters are kind of collectively known as the Four Graces. It's set during World War II, so there's some interesting period detail to this book. The sisters are, for the most part, living at home in an old vicarage. Their father is the local vicar, and they've got a very happy sort of domestic setup until a undesired house guest arrives in the form of a distant relation, who is a sort of aunt by marriage of theirs, and who is a very formidable, bossy individual, and sort of creates some turmoil amongst the sisters. But all ends happily. There are a couple of light romances that occur in this book too that are very sweet. And it was just a really fun read, and I was in the mood for something light but still well written. I always think D. Stevenson writes very well, so I really enjoyed it. And then after that, I read The Young Clementina, another D. Stevenson book. This one is a bigger book by her, which is slightly more unusual. And I enjoyed this one, but it felt a bit more dated in some ways compared to some of her other books. Perhaps partly because it's set just before World War One and then after World War One, and you sort of follow the heroine's life through what happens to her just after World War One ends. And the man she's in love with, that she has really considered herself practically engaged to, comes back from the war, and to her confusion, clearly no longer wants to marry her. And then the story kind of goes forward in time a bit, and the heroine is working in a travel library. I love that she's surrounded by books. And this man from her past comes back into her life. He's married her sister. But certain circumstances have brought her sister and this man back into her life. She's tried to avoid them as much as possible until then. And there's just really, it's a bit of an improbable plot, I have to say, and I don't want to give too much of it away, but sort of series of events unfolds that leads ultimately to a happy ending, so that's good. Elements of the plot are definitely a bit ridiculous. It does feel a bit more dated, like I said, but I still enjoyed it. So I was happy to have read that one. And there's some lovely descriptions of the countryside, I have to say, in this book too. Some really lovely descriptions of spring in the country, and that really stood out for me as a favourite passage in the book. And then I picked up this book secondhand, The Penguin Lessons by Tom Mitchell, or Michelle, I'm not quite sure how you say his last name. And this is a memoir. It's based on a true story of what happened to the author when he was quite a young man, just in his early 20s, I think, and he wanted to spend time traveling. So he got a job at a boarding school in Argentina. This was in the 1970s. And the book follows what happened to him on his travels in Argentina, specifically when he rescues a penguin from an oil slick, and he manages to clean the penguin, but the penguin then won't go back into the ocean, and he ends up bringing this bird with him to the boarding school. And the book is very much about how this penguin affects his life, affects the life of the rest of the staff and the boys in the school. It's a very sweet, poignant, touching memoir. It's also really interesting that it's set against the backdrop of Argentina in the 1970s, all of the political turmoil of that time. But yeah, it was an interesting read. I enjoyed it, and I think the movie based on the book is just about to come out in April, so I'm curious to see that. So yes, I was glad to read the book before hopefully seeing the film. But anyway, I think that's all of the books I wanted to just catch you up on. So I'm going to make a cup of tea a minute, I think, and then I'll check on my Parmesan shortbreads. Okay, so here are the Parmesan shortbreads finished. I just cut one of the logs. I think I'm going to freeze the other one because I didn't think we needed more than this amount. So I cut up the slightly bigger log into coin-sized pieces, £1 coin-sized pieces, and then just baked them. 15 minutes is all it took for me until they got just a nicely golden around the edges. I'm going to just try one, this slightly misshapen one. So good, so simple, but so tasty. Still a bit warm from the oven. Just lovely. And I'm just gonna pop them into this little dish that I have, and that will go down really nicely. I think we've got some Prosecco. Just have a glass before supper, and I think these will go down a treat with a glass of Prosecco. So I'm excited. Those are ready. I'm going to just spruce myself up a bit again to be ready for our guest. But thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you've all had a wonderful weekend. Extra big thanks as always to those of you who pressed the super thanks button on my last video. I so appreciate your wonderful support. And yes, I'll see you again on Thursday. Goodbye.